Three, two, one, go.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Above Board TV and Dice Tower Dish.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 347, and we are recording this on December 12th, 2024. Board Games Insider is proud to be powered by Board Game Geek. I love saying that, Corey. I don't know why.
Yeah, you
It
go
just,
into a full like movie trailer
yeah.
voice. That's
So I could
you're
do
way
voice.
too into it.
I don't understand why I'm not being hired by Hollywood to do these things, or like game media to do things that are
Yeah,
crazy,
it's
in a desert,
such
in a car,
an absolute surprise to me. I have no idea.
or, like I could be Carl's younger brother because I look younger than Carl Claus. And why don't you tell us about this? Now I'm going off on a little tangent here. Why don't you tell us about the stuff going on in your life, including your appearance as Carl Claus,
Yeah,
Santa's bad brother?
it's been a busy week. I mean, obviously PAX Unplugged was such an amazing show. Saw so many good friends in Philly. I was only there a few days. I came to PAX late. I was at the show for 2 days because I was Carl Claus. This is a little bit of inside baseball, a little deep, but last year we did at Above Board a video where I was Santa Claus's ne'er-do-well brother who was just kind of squatting and being a leech at the house. And this year, we filmed a video that's going to come out before Christmas. Obviously, it's going to come out next week, which is going to be Carl Claus looking for a job. And there is a special guest. Last year, Santa Claus kidnapped Isaac Childress and was mad about the weight of Gloomhaven. This year, we did not kidnap Stephen Bonacore.
It's why can't I? Oh, I can't even. It's now become like a thing. Like you guys just refuse to have me on your stuff. Oh, I work
Uh,
cheap,
we've
man.
got we've got an extreme video that we're starting to plan out for that has it starts with a large box of many-legged insects. Uh
No, 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 no. Not that. That's the one. That's the one thing I can't be on. Okay, I'm
you wouldn't
sorry.
let us cut your hair off.
I did not say that. Paula said that you're not allowed to cut Steven's hair off. I did not say I
That's
might I might do that. The tattoo idea was something I would do, and I have zero tattoos. Anyway, let's not to delay this. Go ahead, keep
no,
going.
no, no, no.
It's
So next
so
week
good.
we've got our Carl Claus kidnaps episode, and yeah, I gotta say, Carl dressed up nice, looking for a job. I looked pretty good. I was pretty sharp.
Very, very nice.
And of course, check out our Wasteland Weekend videos. They're dropping, and there's a number of them. We've got our four-part build video where Leaf and Brett went to South Dakota and built a car, built a war rig for this Mad Max adventure in the desert Wasteland Weekend. And of course, Restoration Games supported us, and we played Thunder Road Vendetta, and
Of
the
course.
playthrough video is coming out soon.
Of course. Anything else?
I think those are the
Yeah.
biggies. It's
Okay.
it's been a
I
whirlwind.
and and over here at the Podfather Gaming, as you can see, I am in a hotel room again. And if those who are watching can see that Corey is in his professional studio with this gorgeous
Backlit in
hex,
blue.
yeah, beautiful, like the Rode mic sitting there, and I've got my little crappy setup here in a bedroom because this week, right after PAX, I flew back to Florida. I actually flew into Miami. I can't stand that airport. It's the furthest of the major airports from me. I sent Paula back in a car back home, and I came down to the Dice Tower headquarters. I'm in Homestead, Florida, right now in a hotel. I was here for the Dice Tower Winter Spectacular, but on behalf of the World Series of Board Gaming. So I was here with John Hagmeyer, the CEO, who's here in the hotel as well, and the two of the many ring winners, of course, that have won championship games at the World Series, Nick and Jonathan and these guys were just so much fun, and they had so much fun. Every game they played, by the way, against the Dice Tower people, they won, of course. It's amazing how good, and they just learned
I
them.
love it.
It's amazing how good when you're that good of a gamer that you just grok things. I got a chance to play two games with them off camera. I played Terraforming Mars with them and John Hagmeyer, and they beat us. But I came in a respectable third to Nick, who won, and Jonathan, who came in second. And then I played Tishu with them,
Oh,
and I
cool.
taught them. Nick knew how to play, so we played on different teams. Jonathan and John didn't know how to play, but so and I we won. Which made me feel so good. Something that I'm really good at. I thought it was
So to review, you placed a respectable third in four people,
yes. And then I
and you won a partner game with one of the people who won everything.
with actually John Hagmeyer, who is just a
Oh,
great
okay, okay.
he's a
That's
great
what,
bridge. He's a bridge player.
there
So
you
so
go.
he really grokked Tishu very quickly. But it was just a great experience and fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's funny. So now I find myself playing in my like revitalized, love of Terraforming Mars because I'm playing against like lots of friends online. And now people who hear me that I'm playing online are now inviting me to games. So I'm playing like in five different Terraforming Mars games on Board Game Arena. So out there,
That's
I'm
awesome.
I'm cool. If you want to invite me, I'm amazingly enough on Board Game Arena, the Podfather of gaming, that entire thing, no spaces. If you want to invite me to a game, I only ask that you make it the Tharsis map, which is, the standard one, so I don't have to think too hard about all the milestones and awards. We use Prelude, of course. No drafting. It just takes too long, and like a two turns per day. Make it a ranked game, two turns per day. If you want to invite me to a game, I'm more than happy to play with you. That would be wonderful. What am I doing after this? I will be home. I was with Corey at PAX, of course, but now I'm going to be home for like 2 weeks and then fly again up to New Jersey because I love to be in New Jersey in the winter, and enjoy the family time. And we are a close family, so it's going to be a good time. We'll all be there pre-Christmas. Then my brother Greg's got to leave to go see his other family, his daughters in Georgia. But I'll be with mom for like 8 days, which is really nice. Probably one of the next times you see me here on camera, I'll probably be with mom in the background vacuuming behind me, which is always a very interesting thing to see.
That's
She
amazing.
just doesn't get video conferencing and stuff. So finally, so at PAX, and there's a lot of stuff going on with Play to Z. We're going to mention a little bit in a moment, and you can see me sporting a Play to Z T-shirt here instead of the Podfather of Gaming T-shirt. I At PAX we did great. The company was doing good. A lot of great promotion. We announced, of course, the Shut Up and Sit Down partnership. We'll talk about that a little more in a second. And we still have the Tales of the Arabian Nights 40th anniversary edition on Kickstarter. Now over $150,000, doing very well. It funded in 1 hour. Check that out. Go to gamefound.com, type in Tales of the Arabian Nights or Play 2Z, and you'll find it. It's a classic game of storytelling. I'm loving the fact that we're bringing this one back out.
It's such a good game.
It is, it is, it is. You know who's
The
a huge
original
fan?
storytelling's sandbox.
Yeah. Do you know who's a really big fan of this? Paula Deming is a huge fan of this game. In fact,
Awesome, man.
we found that out. We went to her and said, "Hey, would you do some work with us on this?" And she's like, "Of course, I love the game. I'm so happy you guys are doing it." So she's going to do some, shout outs and videos and stuff, for us, which is great. So everybody out there, let's get over to the event deck. All right, Corey. The first thing, as I said, I kept kind of delaying the stuff about Shut Up and Sit Down, but I loved the article that came out.
You
Uh,
only love it because it calls us an all-star board game company.
I mean, it's great. So when they, I do appreciate, we sent out a press release to all as much media that we have and the podcast and stuff like that. So ICV2 picked up on the press release, and um their mention here says All-Star Board Game Company Play to Z and Shut Up and Sit Down form a strategic partnership to launch with Matt Leacock's new game. So it's, that's very humbling. I calling us All-Star. I mean, we're the smallest publisher out there possibly right now, that kind of thing. But it's nice to hear that they're still recognizing that, look, and they mentioned Zev Schlesinger first because he is
Of
an
course,
absolute
he's the Z.
all-star. He is the Z in Z-Man, kind of the Z in WizKids, though that was there already, and certainly the Z in Play to Z. They mentioned me, but there are 15 investors in this company. And that's it. I mean, everyone has heard about this. Under the Shut Up and Sit Down agreement, we're going to be doing as the first game Animal Rescue Team, which is a Matt Leacock game with an actual animal rescuer, Lisa Towell, as the co-designer. And
Yeah.
it's got gorgeous artwork. Matt is the Leacock is the number one in cooperative games. And Shut Up and Sit Down loves the game, so they're very happy to
And
be
Matt Leacock
launching it.
put out his newsletter recently that talked all about the game and the design. It was a really nice little art.
Yeah. And it's been in the works for quite a while. So it's really exciting that we're able to do it with him. And of course, that Shut Up and Sit Down is so excited about as well. The second game comes directly from Shut Up and Sit Down. It's called Dogs of War. It's a game that was published by Simon, a Paolo Mori game from back in the day. It's out of print. We're going to do it in a less chrome-filled game to make it a more approachable price point, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
do it the Simon way. We're going to do it the Play to Z way. It's going to be easy for everybody to get this game at a reasonable price, which is going to be great. So I went on a little too long there, but I'm very excited about that whole thing. So the next one is a touchy subject, right? And wouldn't you
Yeah.
say? Um,
Definitely. This is an article from BoardGameWire, and it's
yep.
talking about the some of the current trials and tribulations going on with the publisher Elf Creek Games.
Hmm.
It's been no secret they've been having a little bit of trouble, and they have several games that are prominent that they're having trouble supplying, like Honey Buzz
Hmm.
is quite a popular game that has been out of print for a little while. They did Merchants of the Dark Road, absolutely gorgeous components, and they have several Kickstarter campaigns that are in a questionable state.
Yep.
Uh, so one of the designers, Paul Solomon, who's a designer of Honey Buzz, is on Board Game Wire commenting on the state of the company, the state of the Kickstarter project. So it's nice to see the inside there on what's been going on, what has happened, what some of the problems were that they're trying to overcome.
It's very sad that and I'm gonna look without having true inside knowledge, but with knowing enough about the fact that they raised millions of dollars on Kickstarter, right? So that means you get the money. They could not bring the games out. That's not good. And it just means you have
Well,
not
they were
managed yourself
one,
well.
well, to be fair, they were one of many companies who were hit by the shipping crisis.
Sure,
This was a period of time where you budgeted for a certain amount of money to have a shipping container. And during the crisis, the amount that shipping actually cost could be 5 to 10 times higher, five to
absolutely.
ten fold higher than
Right.
what you budgeted. And
And
that really hurt a lot of publishers.
And what did other publishers do, Corey? They delayed some shipments. They might have gone with some of them that were expensive, but they
Yeah.
delayed shipments and they told people, "Hey, we can't justify a $40,000 container when the
Or
last
they asked
container
for
we did
more
was
money.
$4,000." Or they asked for money, and there was various ways. And these guys, and they did. Elf Creek did. So it's very unfortunate that the money did not
True.
work
Very true.
out. So I mean, I can't be nice
No,
about
and I'm
these
not
words.
giving a full pass here. It's
Right.
just a lot of the crises and problems that we've talked about many, many times hit Elf Creek hard.
They did.
And
And
it's questionable how they're going to come through it.
it is absolutely questionable how they're going to come through this. So thanks to Paul for giving us a little behind the scenes there, and you can read more about that on boardgamewire.com, our good friends in the media. We have one more here that you put up here very recently, and it's about
Yeah.
go tell me about this story. It's about rebellion defending Joyride.
So, yeah, Rebellion Unplugged has a new Kickstarter called Joyride. And it's Joyride Survival of the Fastest. Uh, it's designed by Duncan Malloy, and there's contention because another board game designer, Corne van Moorsel, who is the owner of Koali Games, probably best known for Habitats and Factory Funner. Um, Corne has claimed plagiarism. Corne has said that this is a ripoff of his designed powerboats. And there's two articles on BoardGameWire about this. Most of it is from Duncan Malloy's side, Rebellion Unplugged. I'm sure, knowing BoardGameWire, they reached out to Corne to try to get the side there. But so far, we're hearing it mostly from one side.
Hmm.
Powerboats, if people don't remember, is an older title that takes the Formula Day kind of strategy. It's a racing game where you roll a certain number of dice and you have to move the amount you roll. And a higher gear equates to either more dice or dice with bigger numbers. And you can get in trouble if you try to go too far because you'll crash into walls and things. Um, so you're the big complicating issue that's going on here is the designer of Joyride Survival the Fastest was in talks with Corne van Moorsel in 2019 about reprinting powerboats. So there's kind of a weird squidgy zone here. However, the new title, Joyride Survival of the Fastest, is significantly different. And what the discussion really goes into, because it's not big news to have one company say, "Hey, you ripped off my game." This It happens, and it
It
tends to be
does.
an argument of viewpoint between two companies, a he said, she said.
Right.
The real thing I find interesting about the article is where is plagiarism? Where is inspiration? What is the line dividing the two? Because there's definitely a lot of games that build off of other games. And the example that keeps coming up in the articles is Dominion. Dominion popularized and created the genre of deck building, and a lot of other games used deck building. There's very few people who would say that all of the other games that use deck building are ripping off Dominion. It
Right.
created a genre. So he's talking about when the genre is small, because deck building is a huge genre now. So we kind of accept that there's a lot of games in that realm. But when the
Sure.
genre is small, such as the Formula Day racing genre, it gets weird. You can make new games in the genre, but people will tend to think that they are closer in a relationship than they are. So it's a really a fascinating pair of articles.
Yeah, it is. And and to reiterate a little bit to people out there, um, game mechanics are not copyrightable.
Oh,
You cannot
exactly. In the
copyright them
legal
in a
side.
legal sense. Now, in a moral sense, right? If you put out a game that does something, and I put out a game that does exactly the same thing with a different title and a different theme, and the rules are written completely differently, it's legal to do so. The morality of it is questionable.
And
Certainly, you shouldn't release exactly the same game. I mean, that's just
they're
crappy.
they're
Especially if you talk to
famously
that
bad.
person first, right? And and you looked at the game. Then it's like really just
And this
really
is not the
horrible.
situation we're in here with
Right.
this particular game with Joyride. They're not exactly the same. But there
Right.
was a famous legal case that Bang, the card game Bang, was copied exactly every mechanism by another game themed in the Seven Emperors of China, and it went to a lawsuit, and DV Gochi lost the lawsuit. That's where it was determined that you cannot legally claim a mechanism.
Right. There you go. Let's get to where are we, Corey? That is the end of the news. Wow, look at
Yeah,
that.
that was our news articles.
Small amount of news we had this week.
Some
Let's
really interesting ones, but
but some
not
interesting ones. Let's get over to strategy and tactics. All right, I'm going to remind everybody we only have a page of stuff left. You better put some questions in our guild there. So, the first one we have here is from an unnamed but with a board game geek handle. He's or she is at Cortella SJ. I'm wondering if there is any firm or loose criteria that constitutes a Gen Con release. I understand that some games are demonstrated at Gen Con before release, and other games premiere for sale at Gen Con, but some titles touted as Gen Con releases seem way outside the window. And
Yeah.
he mentions, or she mentions, Let's Go to Japan as it was listed. So Corey, is there a true
There's
definition of
no
this?
rules. No, I mean
Yeah, there's no rules to
you
this.
can say whatever you want to
Exactly.
say, and people are kind of buy it. And I agree. I've seen quite a few games listed as Gen Con release, and I look and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've played that. And I look and it was released 2 years ago. And you get a weird crossover. So there will be European games that will have their premiere in the United States, and they will call it a Gen Con release, even though the game has been out in Europe for several years.
Right.
Uh, and you'll get some games that had a really soft release or a Kickstarter release and never really had a retail release. And then they'll have a big announcement at Gen
Yeah.
Con, and all of a sudden it's a Gen Con release. It's all marketing.
It.
Um, and I believe I can quote our dear friend Ignacy. Uh, his quote about marketing, what was it again?
Oh, I don't remember. What is it?
He
No.
said, marketing is lying. If you're doing marketing, you should lie.
I don't remember him saying that, but that sounds very much like an Ignacy quote. Yeah, I mean, it really is a marketing event. And there's some companies take it a little more seriously into the definition. Let's take Asmodee. We talk about them a lot, of course. They're the big ones. So they'll have a Gen Con release, and that would mean when they say it that the game is literally coming out the same time or really, really, really soon thereafter. And then they'll call something a Gen Con pre-release, meaning it's coming out several months later, but they'll have some early copies there that you can buy. And a good
Right.
one just now we had with PAX. We had at PAX, Asmodee had Brian Bournemuller's new Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. It was a pre-release at PAX because they had 100 copies a day, sold out in minutes each day, and the game is coming out in January. So
Yep.
that's kind of how you do it. But literally, if you're talking about it, hey, this is our PAX release. Well, it's really just a thing like, hey, you can check it out here for
The,
possibly the first time in the area or something
the
like.
convention will never set down
Yeah.
rules about this.
No,
It's not
no.
like Gen Con's going to say, now, that is
Yeah.
not an official Gen Con release.
It's a marketing thing
It's
only.
all marketing, and
Yeah.
every publisher makes up their own rules.
Robert Minore, who I hung out again with at Gen Con. We mentioned that again this year. He's a great guy. He's at Rob Man. He says, hey, and he asked it like sort of like right before Gen Con. He said, Steven, do you miss the days of being an exhibitor at conventions? What was your worst experience as an exhibitor? What is your most fondest memory as an exhibitor? Do I miss those days on some level? I really, a friend of mine once said, you really like the booth life, Stephen. That's Kira, who's a great marketing person, said that to me once. And I'm like, yes, I did like that a lot. Um, and my fondest memories are literally standing there and talking about the games. I didn't do much demoing, certainly not later on. I had demoers to do the demoing, but I really did enjoy just that interaction. I still get interaction, of course. We tell people to come up to us. I get that. But standing there, people be just some people just cool that's going from one section to the other, say, hey, love what you're doing. That's a great feeling, right? Or you get a big amount of interaction, which is great. Worst experience as an exhibitor? I don't know. The worst. I mean, certain
Setting up a booth
conventions.
before the AC is turned on.
Oh, well, that's not a good thing. Yeah, I mean, because like, yeah, a lot of these places don't put the AC on. Indianapolis in the summer is not good, and Columbus too. They don't pay for the air conditioning on the day that you're setting up. You're gonna sweat a bit. So maybe that's the
The
worst.
reason they don't turn the AC on during setup, right?
Well, because the big garage doors, whatever you want to call them, they're all open too to bring in like big trucks and
And it
pallets and
causes a storm front.
you might get snow like between
No,
the
no, no, it's weirder than that. They open all of the big loading dock
Yep,
doors,
yep.
and if you turn the AC on, it actually starts to rain in the exhibit hall
Well, not
because of the
rain, dude.
cold.
Oh, you
It
stop
does.
it.
It
No,
mists and it rains.
you'll get
I
condensation up on the rafters and drops will start happening. Yes. I mean, all right, Corey, let's not get crazy here with like, a meteorological conversation. Peter Van Hoek from Belgium, he's at Pieter VH. What was the biggest mistake you made in your board game career? And to balance it out, what was your best decision? I
joining
guess
Board
it's
Game
to me and
Insider.
Ignacy. He's not here. Maybe Corey, maybe, yeah, I mean, you have a board game career too. You want to go first? I talked a lot.
Yeah, joining Board Game Insider. That's my answer.
That's your biggest mistake, joining board games. And so
I'm
what
not saying which one it is. That's
I mean, my best decision was to start Stronghold Games. I mean, that goes without saying.
sure.
If you want me you want me to go down, it be obviously to see that there was genius in Terraforming Mars to delay it a little bit so that we developed it a little more with Fricks Games. We delayed it a year before we brought it out, and and that obviously set my company and career path in a great direction. So that obviously, and the biggest mistake is, it's going to be overprinting certain games. You pick some games that aren't great. Zev has this great thing that he used to say about Z-Man games. He said it was like when he was doing Z-Man, it was like making making great games for 20 years, and little asterisk was like near that. He said like most of them. Because even recognizes some of your games aren't as great as you may have thought they were when you brought them out or something like that. So thank you, Peter. MG Freed. He's at Fredo.
Fredo.
He's Fredo. Working in the construction industry, I've learned the importance of stating sunsets on
Stating
the
sunsets
quotes.
on the quotes
Oh, yes,
when
because
something's
a
gonna
quote,
time out. Yeah.
right, a quote has to time out. Right. Would I be wrong in assuming that board game publishing factories give time limits on their quotes from the completion date of crowdfunding campaigns? And if so, do you think some of these crowdfunding board game companies are taking too long to fully develop their games, especially the bloat they add, and not delivering files soon enough, causing unexpected costs? I've known shipping costs have fluctuated a lot, but I have to imagine the factories must requote sometimes as well. How does this typically work? Yeah, so the prices when you get that initial quote will stay the same. I mean, if you add things, well, the price is going to change, of
Yeah.
course. If you bloat into the campaign, it's going to change. Um, and companies should, I mean, is this too inside baseball? You should know everything that's going to go into your game and any things you're going to add into the campaign beforehand, before you start anything. If you have a mini expansion is going to be a stretch goal, you better know how much that costs, how much it adds to shipping. If you don't do this work,
Yeah. They're all planned out well before the campaign.
you're simply not doing your company justice. And I'm not even a crowdfunding expert, right? I mean, I've done a minimal amount of that when Stronghold Indie merged. Then I was part of even more stuff, but I'm not an expert at it. But if you don't know the costs of everything you're going to do, you're not doing it right. Um, and the quotes for the stuff, if they stay the same, will stay the same going forward within a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
It's you're going to get 6 months even. You're going to get a decent amount of time on these things. It's a little different, like your construction company, Fredo MG, that probably your costs shift more dramatically. But if a company quotes you, this is what it's going to cost to make your game. They've built in your price structure. They know how much the paper is. They are anticipating if anything's going to change. So it's not as big. It's the bloat that would change things.
Yeah. And the shipping is the one that might surprise you.
Oh
Shipping
yeah.
the quote pretty close to the time that they're going to ship. So you can anticipate it to a certain extent, but if something extraordinary happens, like when the shipping prices blew up, you know, multifold, that could be a surprise. But the quote on having something manufacturing shouldn't change.
That's right. Basically. Esteban, hey, that's Steven. Esteban Vasquez from Chile. He's at Xteban. What games would you recommend for someone looking to bridge the gap between board games and tabletop RPGs? Specifically, what games work well for introducing board gamers to tabletop role-playing games and vice versa? Also, if there's anything specific you'd
Wow.
suggest for making that transition smoother, I'd love to hear it. That's a very
That's
tough
I like
question.
that because when I started playing board games, agreed this is pretty dated. We're talking about the 70s. My holy grail, the thing that I was actually seeking was a board game version of role-playing games. That's what I wanted more than anything in the world. And it's turned into the whole genre of dungeon crawl games. So there's two ways to look at it. The board games that imitate role-playing games, there's all the way to the classics, Talisman and Dungeon, through modern dungeon crawls. So Descent obviously was the big powerhouse there. Uh, even Gloomhaven has dominated the market
Gloomhaven,
recently.
absolutely.
But there's so many of them, and they're all wonderful in their own ways. If you want a really traditional, every single little table and marker, you've got Sword and Sorcery from Ares games. There's a whole bunch there. But the other way is really interesting, where you've got board games that'll introduce people to role playing. And these are story driven, theme driven board games, or even these hybrid games. One of the biggest examples is Fiasco. Fiasco is technically a card uh, board game, but in reality, it's laying a groundwork to role play. It is a story building role playing adventure
You're
experience.
a font of game knowledge because I don't know that game, and that sounds fantastic. I'll
Jason
I'll
Morningstar.
there you go. I'll point to like the paragraph games and like the choose your own adventure
Yeah,
type stuff,
exactly.
right? Like Tales of the Arabian Nights, which we talked about, right? This is a game where you're gonna play a character, like you're gonna play Aladdin or you're gonna play oh gosh, I can't remember the other characters, and they're going to have story arcs as they move around the board and encounter other people. So, and they're going to get things. So it becomes a little bit of role playing, but it becomes story oriented really more than anything. And that's what role playing games are all about, right? You create a story. You could create a
Yeah.
story between all of the players. The DM is unfolding it as they go along. Good question. Giacomo, who's at Giacomo with some zeros in there. Steven, just wondering if you had seen this thread on The Geek. I would love to hear the three of you. Sorry, the two of us only today. Ignacy was very busy again, sadly. Cover this. I'm not going to go into the exact thread, and we're not going to mention the exact names. There's nothing good that can come of that. But we're going to talk about this in general. There's a few things in it. It's about paid reviews and video reviews and reviews in general and stuff like that. So the first thing, so let's just talk about reviewing and stuff like that. First of all, if a reviewer is getting paid to do a review, well, they have to state that clearly. This is a
Yeah.
paid review. I'm getting paid in some compensation to do this thing for a company. As long as
And it
that's
should
stated,
even
there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that.
It should even be revealed if you were given the game.
It should be. That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, there are reviewers who are very much purists who will source the game out themselves, pay for the game themselves, not contact the publisher at all, and then review the game in a as biased as possible manner. Most reviewers will be given copies of the game from the publisher, and
Right?
that has to be considered as some form of compensation. And there are some reviewers who are paid a sum. Please do a review of this game. Here's a pile of money. It's not a big pile, but it's a
No, it's
pile.
a very small pile of money, but yes, and that's a legitimate thing. There's
And
nothing wrong with
all
that
of
as
those are
long as it's
totally
stated.
fine. Exactly. You don't want to mislead anybody.
Right.
Most reviewers hold to kind of a little bit of a code that if they get a game and they play it and they hate it, they may not do a review on it. And that kind of works well for the publisher, kind of works well for the
Yeah.
reviewer. You don't want to be the reviewer who's known for bashing games. It's an odd position to be in. Um, but publishers on the other side should realize that if they give their game to a reviewer, I mean, they could say whatever they want about the game, and you should be okay if a reviewer says they don't like your game.
Yeah, and it's in the category of all marketing, all mentioning, all coverage is good coverage, right? Because you want people to be talking about it. Because frankly, a lot of times when Tom reviews a game and he doesn't like it, I might like that game. It's just we
Yeah.
have some different tastes, and that's not a knock against Tom. Everybody, you and I have different tastes in games. You like that big, heavy, crunchy Euros, and I don't
And
specifically.
you
I mean,
like that.
I'm not gonna not play that game, but it's not my go-to, and I want to be beating people up in Thunderdome Arena, like in the latest Carnival of
Sure.
Chaos, and I want storytelling and I want theme, you know. So that's the difference. If having a reviewer mention your game and do a review is probably a good thing. But this article goes, or this thread goes a little deeper, and it had to do with when a company sends a prototype to an individual to do and it was and I believe it was a paid
Yeah,
review of the
paid
prototype.
review. I
Paid,
mean, you be clear
right,
on what you're actually doing with the product as well, but I
right.
think he's specifically talking about a paid preview.
A paid preview of a game. They sent them the They sent a review of the prototype, and the reviewer refused to send it back. And it was like the only copy of the thing they had. Now, if the company wants it back, of course, that would be their responsibility to pay for the shipping to get it back to them. That's
But I don't
only
think that's
fair.
even the point of this article. It wasn't
Okay.
who pays for it. The point was ownership, that the reviewer had claimed ownership over this prototype, said, "You sent it to me. It's a gift. It's mine. I'm keeping it."
That is, and to me, that's an outrage. It's just absolute outrage. If I send you a prototype, it's mine. It's the publisher's prototype. I'm sending it to you to do something and I'm paying
Yeah.
you to do that, but the prototype is mine. I have to get it back via reasonable. Just please put it in the mail and send it back to me. Here's $30 or whatever it was to get it back.
Now,
That is fair.
a lot of publishers don't want it back. And I get that
Right.
a lot
Most
of people
don't.
do reviews off of previews, especially people who do huge amounts of paid previews. A lot of times it's a hassle. They're like, I don't even want that. So as an example, Mark Streed, a good friend who does the paid preview first looks for Dice Tower, he ends up with enormous piles of prototypes that he doesn't know what to do with.
Right. And right. But those essentially most reviewers will take them and will throw them away because that's you don't who wants prototypes on their shelf
It's
as a
problematic
reviewer.
to sell them more things like that
I
because
mean, sometimes you keep the
it's a
bits
prototype.
because the bits might
Yeah.
be cool, like extra meeples to use if you're a designer too and a reviewer, maybe. Um, but yeah, most publishers will say, "Don't want it, throw it out. That's fine." But it was this particular person who was like, "No, no, this is mine." And the publisher was like, "It's the only thing I have for this game. I can't make another one. It would take forever. Please send it back. Here's the money." And the person said, "No, not cool. Sorry,
Not cool.
not going to go into it on who, but it was a uncool thing." We're going long here today. I love this. Let's go over to play testing.
Yeah.
Corey, as usual, you often ask the questions here. You're so
I
good to
asked the
us.
best question.
You ask questions. So what did you ask? What did you ask last week? And let's talk about those answers that we got.
Right. So I asked, you are heading to a game night. You're packing your bag to bring. What is the perfect number of games to bring to a gaming night?
As usual, we got a decent number of answers here, a full page almost. And I like the very different kinds of things. We have Evan Halbert. He says three, a heavy, a medium, and a light. Covers all the bases, gives you good coverage for how long the evening is. If no one else brings an option and they're grumpy about what you brought, well, that's their own fault. But I like
I
that.
actually I like that one of the most popular numbers that came up was actually five. This is more than I expected. I was being a little facetious when I answered it last week, saying, you know, I would, personally, I think I would bring like 10 games just because I tend to be the one who brings all the games and I get excited about all the games. So,
And you actually said last week, like, you want to bring everything. You like just bring them all, which is crazy.
yeah. So Mike Walecki said five. Three possible main courses to allow some variety and two fillers, depending on the playing style. Swapping these numbers are permitted. Of course, if your selections are from the previous night and they were never played, you should bring all five of those as well. If the gaming night is on a Saturday, all numbers should be doubled. If on a Sunday, then the game day starts before or 10 in the morning, then you can bring an extra five. If you're all currently fasting and will not be eating, add another three to each category. If the chance of a blizzard or other incident weather that could prevent your departure from a gaming event is greater than 42%, all numbers should be tripled. If you are driving a motorhome, then you're allowed to bring as many as will fit in the motorhome. Note that all of these rules are definitive and are not to be altered in any way under pain of death unless you roll a natural 20 or you're feeling feisty.
All right, that is one of the greatest answers we've
I
ever had.
love
Thank
this
you.
answer. I just sat and giggled.
Yeah. And here's the exact
Unfortunately, that's kind of how I do it.
and here's the exact opposite. Kevin Martin says, I don't pack any game nights at my house. I love that one.
Mario Sousa was always too much for what we actually have time to play. So I fit to that as well.
Right. Alexander, where is he? Alexander Savinkov. 3 to 5 games is my way of giving the audience a variety of options without overwhelming them. But we usually only play 0 to 2 of those games, which is perfectly fine. Right. I mean, I think that's the kind of a thing. You bring them and then you see, which one's going to fit. And none of my games might be the one that people want to play. It might be 2 of them. So that's good. You bring a variety and then you figure it out from there.
Absolutely. Guido Van Horn, one more game than I can fit in my bag.
He's always sneaking
And
a little extra.
I live this. I would have an IKEA bag and I would pack it full. And on the way out, I would just balance one more right on the top. It's like, well, I already have the bag. I might as well bring this.
One more. So Corey, you had another good one for next week, or for this week. This is this week's question. What is the question, and what do you think?
A very simple one, and I don't know if we've done this before. What is the meanest game you've ever played?
I think this is maybe the simplest, easiest question to answer of all time. The definitive answer for this is diplomacy. Because diplomacy
is pretty neat.
Diplomacy. I don't know if you've ever seen the T-shirts for diplomacy. It's like, shows diplomacy, the box cover, and then underneath it says ruining friendships since 1947. It's this guy is a one and done designer. I can't remember his name right now. He's only ever designed diplomacy, and yeah, it is about as mean as it gets because you will make all kinds of deals in that game, and you'll keep your word in the beginning. You'll keep your word, and then all of a sudden the backstab happens, and like, boom, you hit France, and Britain hits France and destroys them.
Originally designed in 1959 by Alan B. Kalhammer.
So destroying friendships since 1959 is on those T-shirts.
And it was such a classic title because it would be by mail. You would write your moves and mail them to other people, and someone would be kind of the DM over it. Oh man, I despise that game.
I think it's a great game, but it just obviously takes really long time if you play it in person. Yeah. I've had some success playing it online, like with people. There are some sites you can go to play. I played
you don't speak to anymore.
What's that?
With people you don't speak to anymore.
And I've never, Tom Vassell was in a game. We scammed him so hard once. Okay, great anecdote. I'll be really quick here. So, was in a game. It was all podcasters in the game, and I snuck in because I was just starting my podcast. I guess at that time, this podcast, and everybody in the game. Eric Summer was in the game. Obviously, Tom, me, and we all talked behind the scenes, and we said, we're going to tell Tom that none of us want to play this game anymore because we're all angry at each other. Like, I can't stand what Eric's just done. I can't stand what Rob Rouse. Everybody, and literally Tom then sent an email out to everybody stating like, hey guys, look, this is just a game. We have to be friends. But we like tripled and doubled down. We replied to him and said, yeah, Tom, you're right. But Eric is really doing stupid things in this game, and I'm angry. We just did it. And then Eric on the Dice Tower. This is when Eric and Tom were doing the Dice Tower main podcast. He actually stated, Tom, by the way, that whole thing was nonsense. We were just scamming you. He was so angry at us. It was so good. Sorry, I just had to give that
Try so
anecdote.
hard to be a peacekeeper.
Yes, he was. So
So
anyway, we
I
asked, go
gotta,
ahead.
well, I gotta throw in my 2 cents.
Oh, yes,
And this
please.
is gonna be a weird one.
But the meanest game I ever played, believe it or not, photosynthesis. A lovely game about trees growing in a
Right?
forest, all pasture. This is the meanest game out there. It is an area control that is so cruel. You're taking up the sunshine and taking away from other people, and it's such a mean game.
Oh, wow. No, I don't think I've ever played it. So that's interesting that a light game, so to speak, lighthearted, lights, it's like I did there, would be such a thing.
So
A
freaking
bright,
mean.
shiny game. So anyway, right now I have put a thread out there in the guild. So please go there and answer this question. We might take your answer and talk about it next week. And now, the final scoring. Thank you so much for listening and help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts or watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. You want to be part of this podcast? Go to the guild, sign up, become a member, ask us questions for strategy and tactics. Remember, we only have that many questions left there. Answer our question to you in the playtesting thread. And really, this is all easy. You can figure it out. You are smart
If
people.
Autocore can do it, you can do it.
It's exactly how. Yeah. I mean, I am not the brightest bulb in the batch. We already know this. Interact with us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. I love saying Blueski, and YouTube. It's the handle is basically the same everywhere. It's Board Games Insider, it's Portal Games US, it's Podfather Gaming, Dice Tower Dish, Play to Z Games, Above Board TV, and Nerd About Show. We got our fingers in everything. Follow us on your social media of choice, on all of them as you'd like. Special call out, of course, for the YouTube channels, which are the bread and butter of our social media: Portal Game Studio, the Podfather of Gaming, and Above Board TV. At conventions, please come up and talk to us. You won't see us for a little while because the convention season's over, so you're going to have to wait a little while to see us again. Board Games Insiders, professionally edited by Jake Thompson. Thank you, Jake, for being part of the team. And that great voice you hear doing the intro, outro, and in-between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be contacted to do your voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. I miss seeing Ray at PAX. We couldn't get together, but Ray and I are now playing in a Terraforming Mars game online.
That's awesome.
Corey, anything else you want to add for our viewers? Anything else?
I'm a little tired.
You're a little tired, so maybe
Yeah.
this week we don't have anything else to add. But
Maybe I'll get some breakfast.
there,
7:30 in the morning.
yeah, Corey's an amazing guy that he does this so early. So thank you again, always, for helping out here, Corey, and doing this with me. Ignacy should be back next week. Believe me, we want him here. We just have to work around his crazy schedule. Everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
See you later, everybody.
Bye.
I know. I got PAX voice. I yelled so much.